entrepreneurs give up. And I mean, I don't have any stats in front of me, but if we looked it up, we would see that a lot of people, set out to, whether they be full-time entrepreneurs, part-time entrepreneurs, whatever they are, they set out on this mission that they have, and they tend to kind of throw their hands in the air at some point and say, this is not working, which I just want to preface this by saying sometimes it doesn't work. And that's, and I think part of that is knowing when it's time to throw in the towel. But I think there's a lot of people who give up too soon.
For me, I think a lot of them give up because they didn't realize how hard it was going to be. Like straight out. It's not that they have some, and there are bad ideas. Don't get me wrong, So some of them have bad ideas or things that really maybe even ahead of their time, they're just not ready, but I think people don't realize how hard it's going to be. And it depends on what your idea is, obviously, or what you're going to do. But people that want to get into the tech space, they don't realize how much money they need. They don't realize how much fundraising, and it becomes not even about what they wanted to do. Like say, for instance, create something. Sometimes their job winds up becoming about raising the money to actually create it, right? Or whatever the case is. So I don't think they understand fully the scope, do you know what I mean, of all the things that need to be done. And it's hard. It's hard and it's stressful. And I think that's why a lot of people quit. I don't want to say before they get started, but they quit too early.
I think also a lot of people don't plan. I mean, I know we talked about, just do it already, and take action. But I don't think, because working with, look, I don't have a mentality to plan things a lot of times. I mean, I know it seems like I do, but I don't. So I'm just like, oh yeah, this is going to be great. And, but when I think even when we got started, you had laid out so many things like, okay, this amount of money by this time and this and that, and this is how we're going to, and it was kind of like we had certain goals. Like if we don't accomplish X by this, then we, and we were working toward those smaller goals. And a lot of people are just like, we're just going to do this. So there's like a happy medium between just do it and have a solid plan so that so that you don't spend like 5-6 years and go, oh crap, I lost all my money and now I got to stop,
Right. Well, and I think what happens too is, you also, there's things you can make money at right away, and there are things that are longer term goals for those entrepreneurs, and maybe that's the big dream, right, where they want to get, and they need to figure out along the way what are the steps to get to that final goal. Because unless over a sudden you raise $40 bazillion, you're not going to employ everyone and keep everyone going, and still then you got to answer to investors, which is to me in some ways worse, especially if you're really starting up, right? Whereas if you're starting up and you're sort of being strategic about it, like this is the first thing we're going to do, this is where we're going to lay this out, this is the product or whatever the case is, and this is where we're going to see revenue from, and you stick to that plan first, and then you go, okay, here's the next step, you should have that in your mind, but here's the next step, but don't focus on that one that's 3 years down the road, because if you just focus on that one that's 3 years down the road, you're honestly just not going to make enough money to support yourself or your employees or however you're structured. And I think that's what makes it hard for a lot of them. They don't realize like that, that whole piece, right? That planning out, that understanding what it's like. And look, everyone wants a lot of money, but a lot of people don't want to put in the 80-hour work weeks or whatever it is to get it, and I think that's the biggest difference. They don't want to work hard to get to where they want to get or to fulfill that dream.
I
think that's a lot.
I think it reminds me of a conversation I had with my son last night, and I told him that by going to school, he had the opportunity to one day make a lot of money. And he said, when you go to work and you make money, and Dad goes to work and he makes money, but for me, it's going to take so long until I make money. And I had to explain in young person's terms, laying the foundation, because anything that you get too fast, and maybe this is just my belief, but anything that you get too fast is very quick to leave. Whereas when you work for it and you take the time and you put in the work, it's like more long lasting, And I think that's the problem, is that, I think that there are some things, like you said, that you can make some, quicker money. I mean, we've seen some things are just a little bit easier, but for the most part, that long-term goal is going to take so much more work, because if it didn't, what would even be the, how long do you expect something that you didn't put a lot of time into to last?
Right. And I think what happens too is a lot of people, especially a lot of you know, younger entrepreneurs, like, people who are just starting their business who don't really have an idea. They think they're going to make money right out of the gate, or they think they're going to do this one thing and they're going to make millions of dollars, and they don't realize, like, whatever that product is, maybe they're only making $1 a product, by the time all their costs are set up. And now you need to sell 1 million of those things to make that $1 million. And then there's so many, I don't think they realize all the variables sometimes.
Well, look at the clothing. Look at Fighter Philosophy. I mean, and you were telling me about this yesterday. I mean, it's, people don't understand what really went into that first rash guard you made. I mean,
Yeah.
and the materials, and dealing with the designs and the fits and the this and the that. You know what I mean? Like, there's a lot of stuff that went into that.
Right. It wasn't like you just like, oh, I'm going to make a rash guard, and made a rash guard the next day. There was sourcing materials, different types of sublimation, different printing processes. There were so different cuts. There were so many things, that you had to understand. And then, and you go to yourself, well, what can you, and we'll just use that as an example. What can you make that for? Then what can you sell that for? And what's also expected, like, people don't realize, like, if you're making a product that needs a ship, no one wants to pay for shipping anymore. Like, no one wants to pay for shipping. That needs to be added into your profitability. You need to understand that if you're shipping, something like a rash guard may cost $3 to $5, right, in the domestic U.S. You need to understand that that's money that's going to come out of there. You can't manufacture something, sell it for even $3 more if you got to pay $3 in shipping. Then you're breaking even. You're never making money. I don't think people think through it all the way.
And let's actually use that as an example then of, getting something quickly versus, something that's long lasting, because, somebody could go on. I mean, I've done this. I go on, I'm like, oh, I'm just going to design a t-shirt. And then I have I print it up, and it's just a random one-off t-shirt. Now, there are some people who maybe get some lower prices, but they print a few at a time through these like simple online vendors, right? But if you do it that way, you're not making as much money, right? You're not making as much money. So you're getting a quick product, but it's not going to feel as good. It's not the way you wanted it. It's kind of like a standard product you have to deal with, and you're not even making as much money. So sure, you can take a shortcut. You can.
Yeah.
But
you got to think about it. If you use like a high quality t-shirt and an online vendor, maybe you're paying $20 a t-shirt. How much can you sell that t-shirt for? Right? So just think about it. Maybe you're selling it for $30. You're lucky you're selling that t-shirt for $30. Now take out, if you're selling them on, services like eBay, Etsy, you're taking out the $3 or whatever it is they're taking. You're taking out the $3 for the shipping. And now you're at $26 out of your $30. You're making $4 an item. You realize how many you have to sell to make $1 million, right? Even if you order 100 t-shirts, and you sell all 100 of them, you've only made $400 for all that time and effort that was put in there between designing, getting them printed, storing them, shipping them. And all of a sudden now it's like you made $400 for how many hours worth of work. And that's what people don't realize. People don't realize all those components that go into, and that's anything.
Any business.
Yeah.
Right.
We're talking about
so I think the key
any business.
Yeah, the key takeaway then is to understand that it's going to be work, have a plan, and have some benchmarks. I think like having some internal like barometer, like, okay, if I can achieve this by this, like I'll move on to the next step. Like at some point you do have to make a decision, like we said, but understand that like if you need a map, you need some sort of roadmap for yourself, even just for your own home, your own life.
Right. And I think, and you see a lot of really smart business people, like, what will the market bear? Like, we're talking about t-shirt. If $30 is the max you're going to pay on sort of like a standard S t-shirt, and you're paying like 20 something dollars to manufacture that, you have to be realistic, into, is it worth doing, or is it worth going, and is it worth going on to some other project, right? You got to be realistic in what it takes, to make that money. So. But keep dreaming. I mean, look, go out there, go for it. This is not a downer. We're just telling you, be smart about it, right?
And don't give up too soon.
No, no, that's the biggest downfall. People quit way too soon, way too soon.